What do you do when you discover your manipulative ex is targeting your naive little sister? This woman didn't just warn her, she set a trap to expose him for good. Subscribe, dear, so you don't miss new exciting stories.
My name is Naomi, and at 61 years old, I thought I had earned a life of peace. 20 years ago, I divorced Marcus Thorne, a man whose charm was as brilliant and as dangerously thin as a layer of ice over deep, cold water. I'd survived his lies, his subtle manipulations, his casual cruelty, and I had built a quiet, stable life for myself. My greatest joy was my relationship with my much younger sister, Chloe. She was only 23, the late-in-life surprise for our parents, and after they passed, I became more of a mother to her than a sister. She was my heart, my bright, beautiful, sometimes infuriatingly naive little sister. And that naivete was the exact thing Marcus decided to prey upon, like the wolf I always knew he was. You see a picture of a protective older sister, right? A woman who sees a threat and moves to neutralize it. That's the end of the story, the part I fought to get to. But you don't know the beginning. You don't know the sickening cold dread that filled me when I first saw his name light up her phone. You don't know the lies he was spinning, the web he was weaving around her. And if you knew the real reason I divorced him all those years ago, a secret I had kept to protect my family, you'd understand why his friendly texts were not just inappropriate, they were a declaration of war, round 2. And this time, he wasn't just coming for me, he was coming for my sister. It started innocently enough, as these things always do. Chloe was staying with me for the summer while she figured out her next steps after college. One evening, we were sitting on the porch, and she left her phone on the table when she went inside to get us some lemonade. It buzzed, screen lighting up. I glanced over, not meaning to pry, but the name on the notification made my blood run cold. Marcus Thorne. The message preview was short, but it was enough. Thinking of you, beautiful. Hope you're smiling. Wink. The winking emoji from a 63-year-old man to my 23-year-old sister. A man who was not only her elder by 4 decades, but also her sister's ex-husband. A man she barely knew beyond a few polite introductions at family gatherings years ago. A wave of nausea washed over me. "Chloe, honey," I called out, my voice dangerously calm. "Who's this Marcus Thorne texting you?" She came back out, her cheeks slightly flushing. "Oh, that? It's nothing, Naomi. It's your ex, right? He found me on social media. Said he remembered me as a little girl and just wanted to say hi, see how I was doing. He's actually really sweet." Sweet. Marcus Thorne was many things. Charming, manipulative, selfish, a user. But he wasn't sweet when he was draining my savings for his business ideas 20 years ago. He wasn't sweet when I found out about his other friends. And he certainly wasn't being sweet now. This was a calculated move. But what was his game? I asked him, trying to keep my tone light. "He messages you often?" "Here and there," she said with a shrug, but she couldn't quite meet my eyes. "He's just nice. He gives me advice about careers, says I have so much potential. It's kind of cool having an older, successful person to talk to. You're always so worried about me." The barb, unintentional as it might have been, hit its mark. He was positioning himself as the cool, understanding mentor, and me as the fussy, overprotective older sister. The classic grooming tactic. He was poisoning the well, and Chloe, in her youthful desire for validation and independence, was drinking it all in. I knew a direct confrontation would only push her further towards him. She'd accuse me of being jealous, of being bitter about my own past with him. I had to see for myself. I had to know how deep this went. That night, after she was asleep, I did something I'm not proud of. I took her phone. My hands trembled with a mixture of guilt and a desperate need to know. I told myself it was for her own protection, and when I opened their message thread, the guilt evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard fury. It was a masterclass in manipulation. It started with him complimenting her pictures, her bright spirit. Then came the mentoring, vague promises of connecting her with important people, of helping her start a career. Then it became more personal. He'd ask about her day, her dreams, her fears. He'd tell her she was too special for the small-town boys she knew, that she deserved a man who could appreciate her. He was building her up, making her feel seen, all while subtly isolating her from her own world. And the most recent messages, they were the ones that made me feel sick. You have your sister's beautiful eyes, but yours have a fire she never had. I can't stop thinking about our conversation last night, and then the one that made my decision for me. We should meet up for coffee, just the two of us. There's so much I want to tell you and show you. It'll be our little secret. Our little secret. I closed the phone, my heart pounding with a cold dread. This wasn't just a lonely old man being creepy. This was a predator, running the same playbook he probably ran 100 times before. He was testing her boundaries, isolating her, making her feel special, making her feel like they shared a secret against me, against the world. He was setting his trap, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I was the only one who could stop him. My quiet, peaceful life was over. The ice over my own past with Marcus was cracking, and the monster I had so carefully frozen away was trying to crawl out and claim my sister. Not on my watch. My ex-husband wanted to play a dirty game? Fine. He was about to find out that I wrote the rule book.
Naomi has uncovered the disgusting game of her ex-husband, who is trying to draw her younger sister into it. But how can she convince the naive Chloe of Marcus's true intentions without pushing her away? Her battle for her sister is just beginning.
War, I've learned, isn't always declared with a cannon blast. Sometimes it begins with a quiet, calculated decision made in the dead of night, a plan formed from equal parts cold fury and fierce protective love. My enemy was Marcus Thorne, a master of psychological warfare, and my battlefield was the heart and mind of my own sister, Chloe. A direct assault was out of the question. It would only make her dig in her heels, defending the charming, misunderstood older man against her bitter, overprotective sister. No, my approach had to be one of subtle infiltration. I had to make her see the truth, not just hear it from me. My plan began the next morning over breakfast. I pretended I hadn't seen her phone. I was all smiles and sunshine. "Honey," I began casually, pouring her some coffee, "I was thinking about my old marketing career last night. Before I retired. It reminded me of something Marcus used to do." Chloe looked up, a flicker of interest in her eyes. "Oh yeah? What?" "Well," I said, stirring my own coffee, my voice light and anecdotal, "he was brilliant at what they call love bombing. When he wanted to win over a new client, or anyone really, he'd shower them with attention, compliments, make them feel like they were the most special person in the world. He'd find out their dreams and promise he had the keys to unlock them. It was his signature move. Very effective until the charm wore off and they realized it was all just a means to an end." I didn't look at her directly as I spoke, just kept stirring my coffee. But I felt her stillness. I had just described, almost verbatim, what Marcus was doing to her. I didn't mention her, I just planted the seed, let it sprout on its own. Later that week, I enacted the second phase of my plan. Marcus had invited Chloe for that secret coffee. She told me she was meeting an old college friend, a lie that stung but also confirmed how deep she was in his web. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey," I said brightly. "I have to run some errands downtown myself this afternoon. Maybe I'll see you there." A flash of panic crossed her face. "Oh, no, it's just a quick thing, Naomi. You don't have to—" "Nonsense," I said, waving her off. "I won't intrude. It would just be lovely to see you out and about." I knew exactly which coffee shop they were meeting at. I'd seen the location in his text. I arrived 15 minutes after Chloe, dressed in my Saturday best. I spotted them from across the room, my face lighting up in a performance of pure, delighted surprise. "Chloe, honey, what a coincidence!" I exclaimed, bustling over to their table. "And Marcus, my goodness, it's been an age. You look well." The look on Marcus's face was a priceless mixture of shock, fury, and a desperate attempt to maintain his charming composure. Chloe just looked mortified. "Naomi, I, we were just catching up, I see. How wonderful," I said, pulling up a chair without being invited, my smile as sweet as poison. "So, Marcus, tell me everything. What have you been up to all these years? Still conquering the world?" I used the exact phrase from his voicemail, a little jab he couldn't possibly miss. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he recovered quickly, launching into a vague but impressive-sounding monologue about his consulting work in international investments. I listened politely, then turned to my sister. "Isn't that wonderful, Chloe? Marcus is so successful. He was always so good at making things sound good." I emphasized the word sound just slightly. The conversation was a masterclass in tension. I was relentlessly pleasant, a cheerful, clueless older sister who had just happened upon them, but my questions were little poison darts. "So, Marcus, are you still in that big house by the lake? I remember how much you loved to impress people with that place." I knew he'd lost it in a bad investment 2 years ago. "And what was her name? Tiffany, the blonde you were so madly in love with right after our divorce?" I knew they'd had a spectacularly messy breakup. He deflected, he lied, he squirmed, his charm beginning to look frayed at the edges. And I watched Chloe. I watched her listen to his smooth, evasive answers. I saw the first flicker of doubt in her eyes. She had heard my stories about his past, and now she was seeing him create new, flimsy stories in real time, right in front of her. The final, beautiful move wasn't even mine. As we were getting ready to leave, a woman from a nearby table approached. She was my age, elegant, with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Marcus Thorne," she said, her voice dripping with ice. "I thought that was you. I'm Eleanor Vance. My husband, Robert Vance, was one of your investors about 5 years ago, the one you promised a 50% return to and then vanished on right after he gave him his entire retirement fund." Marcus went completely white. He stared at the woman as if he'd seen a ghost. The woman, Mrs. Vance, gave him a cold smile. "She just wanted to thank you," she said, her voice dangerously soft. "The lawsuit was quite successful. Seeing you here with this lovely young lady," she glanced at Chloe with a look of pure pity, "reminded me that some men never change their playbook. Have a wonderful day." She turned and walked away, leaving a crater of stunned silence at our table. I didn't say a word. I just looked at Chloe, whose face was a mask of dawning horror. She was finally seeing the man behind the charming words. She was finally seeing the dirty game.
Marcus didn't even try to offer an explanation. He just threw some money on the table, shot me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, and practically fled the coffee shop, leaving Chloe and me sitting in the wreckage of Mrs. Vance's perfectly deployed truth bomb. Chloe was silent, completely still, her hands wrapped around her now cold cup of latte. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a dawning horror that was painful to watch. The charming, sophisticated mentor she had been so enamored with had just been unmasked as a common, predatory liar. I didn't say a word. No, "I told you so." No, "Are you okay?" I just sat with her in that heavy silence, giving her the space to let the truth sink in, to let the pieces of her own disillusionment settle. The walk back to my car was quiet, but once we were inside, the doors closed, creating a small, private world. The dam finally broke. Chloe crumpled, her face dissolving into tears, her sobs the raw, ragged sound of a young heart breaking for the first time. "He lied to me, Naomi." She wept, her voice muffled as she covered her face with her hands. "Everything he said, was it all lies? The career advice, the connections? Did he ever actually care about my potential? Or was it all just a game?" "Oh, honey," I said softly, my heart aching for her. I pulled her into a hug, letting her cry on my shoulder. It was a game. It was always a game with him. The only potential he cared about was your potential to be his next victim. "Victim of what?" she asked, pulling back, her eyes red and searching mine. "Just taking my money eventually? Like that poor woman?" I took a deep breath. It was time for the whole truth. The secret I had kept for 20 years to protect my family's sense of peace, a peace Marcus himself had now threatened. "It's worse than money, Chloe," I said quietly. "The reason I divorced him, it wasn't just about his affairs or his bad investments. It was about his playbook, as Mrs. Vance called it, his dirty game. He has a pattern. He finds women, often younger, often in a vulnerable position, and he grooms them. He makes them feel special, isolates them, builds their trust, and then he does something terrible." I told her about what I had found back then, the discovery that had finally given me the strength to leave him. I had found a box of photographs, not unlike that other story I once imagined. In it were pictures of several young women, his protégés, his assistants, and with them letters and, well, other, more intimate photos taken without their knowledge. He wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator who collected trophies, who reveled in the psychological control he had over these young women, leaving them broken and ashamed when he was done. The only reason it never escalated to blackmail or public humiliation with them was because I found that box. I confronted him, and I threatened to go to the police and to each of those young women's families with it. That's what gave me the leverage to divorce him without a fight, to make him walk away and never come back. I kept it secret all these years because I didn't want to taint your memory of the family or for you to see that kind of ugliness. I thought I had buried the monster, but I was wrong. He didn't change. He just waited, and then he came for you.
Chloe listened, her face growing paler with each word. The naive girl who had walked into that coffee shop was gone, replaced by a woman with a new, horrified understanding in her eyes. That text, she whispered. "We should meet up. It'll be our little secret. He was starting it with me." "Yes," I said, "he was." Her tears stopped. Her expression hardened, a reflection of the same steely resolve I felt in my own heart. "That sick, twisted son of a..." She started, her voice shaking with rage now, not sorrow. No more. You're right, Naomi. We have to end his game. For good. What do we do?" And just like that, we were a team, a quiet, furious army of two. We spent the rest of the weekend planning not just a defense, but an offense. Chloe, with her youthful understanding of the digital world, became my general. She showed me how to block him on every social media platform, how to make her profiles private and unsearchable. But we knew that wasn't enough. He would find other ways. We had to do more than just build a wall. We had to dismantle his ability to play the game with anyone else. Chloe, remembering the names of the important people he'd been name-dropping to impress her, started doing her own research. She found them online, successful business owners, community leaders. Our plan began to form, a quiet, elegant counter-offensive. We wouldn't confront him directly. We wouldn't create a public scandal that would drag our own family through the mud. No, our revenge, our way of ending his game, would be more subtle, more precise. We would anonymously alert the real important people he was using for credibility. A simple, untraceable email sent to each of them with a gentle warning about a man named Marcus Thorne who was fraudulently using their names to gain the trust of vulnerable young women. We would include just enough detail from Mrs. Vance's story and my own past knowledge to be credible without revealing ourselves. We would take away his most powerful weapon, his perceived credibility, his borrowed prestige. We would make him a pariah in the very circles he so desperately wanted to impress. We would poison his hunting grounds. As we sat there, my sister and I, partners in this strange, necessary war, I felt a new kind of peace settle over me. I wasn't just the protective older sister. I was a mentor, teaching the most important lesson of all, how to fight back. We were ending his game, yes, but we were also starting a new one, a game where the women he preyed on were no longer silent victims, and we were about to make the first move.
Naomi and Chloe have united, turning from victims into hunters. Their goal is not just to stop Marcus, but to destroy his very ability to manipulate others. Can their cunning plan work? And how will Marcus react when he realizes his dirty game is coming to an end?
There's a unique kind of power in righteous anger, a clarity that cuts through fear and hesitation. For 2 days, Chloe and I became a quiet, efficient two-woman intelligence agency. We operated from my small kitchen table, armed with her laptop and my memories of Marcus's boastful name-dropping. Chloe, my sweet, naive sister, transformed before my very eyes. The heartbreak was still there, but it was now overlaid with a cold, focused fury that I recognized from the mirror. She wasn't just my little sister anymore. She was my partner, my ally. Our plan was simple in its elegance. We wouldn't engage Marcus directly. We wouldn't stoop to his level with emotional drama. We would simply turn on the lights so all the other people in the room could see the cockroaches for what they were. Chloe drafted the email. It was a masterpiece of subtle warning. It was anonymous, addressed to a curated list of about a dozen of Marcus's most frequently mentioned business associates and mentors. The subject line was a simple, chilling, a word of caution regarding Marcus Thorne. The body of the email was brief and professional. It spoke of a concerned party who had recently witnessed a disturbing pattern of predatory behavior from Mr. Thorne, specifically targeting younger, vulnerable women for financial and emotional exploitation. It mentioned his habit of fraudulently leveraging the good names of his respected colleagues to build a false sense of credibility. It didn't mention me or Chloe. It didn't even mention the other victims by name. It just gave one concrete, verifiable example, the case of Robert Vance, whose wife, Eleanor, had confronted Marcus in the coffee shop and suggested that a discreet inquiry into Mr. Thorne's past business dealings might prove highly illuminating. It was a perfectly crafted piece of bait, designed to stoke suspicion and protect the sender. We sent it from an encrypted, anonymous email service at 2 a.m, and then we waited. The first ripple came 3 days later. Chloe, who had been monitoring Marcus's public social media, which he used as a peacock uses its feathers to display a life of success he didn't actually have, noticed something. A photo of Marcus at a business luncheon with one of the men on our email list was quietly deleted. "He's being scrubbed," Chloe whispered, a grim satisfaction in her voice. A few days after that, a second ripple. An online business journal that had once quoted Marcus in an article about up-and-coming consultants issued a formal correction, retracting his quote and stating he had no official affiliation with the project he'd claimed to be a part of. The whispers were working. His borrowed credibility was being revoked. The effect on Marcus was predictable. With his external validation crumbling, he grew desperate. His text to Chloe started again, but the tone was different now. The charming mentor was gone, replaced by a needy, almost whining man. "Chloe, why aren't you answering? I thought we had a connection. Is it your sister? Is she filling your head with her bitter lies about me? I really need to talk to you. I have a new opportunity, a huge one, and I wanted you to be a part of it." Chloe read them to me. her face impassive. "He sounds pathetic," she said, and I knew, with a profound sense of relief, that his spell over her was truly, irrevocably broken. She blocked his number without another word. The final confrontation came a week later. He showed up at my door, unannounced. I saw him through the peephole, looking disheveled, his usual confident swagger gone. I opened the door, with Chloe standing just behind me, a silent, united front. "Naomi, and Chloe, I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about, Marcus," I said, my voice cold. "Yes, there is," he insisted, his voice rising with desperation. "Someone is trying to ruin me, spreading lies about me. My contacts won't return my calls, my business deals are falling through. Chloe, I thought you and I—" Chloe stepped forward then, her eyes clear and steady, devoid of the starry-eyed admiration he was used to seeing. "You thought what, Marcus? That you were my next project? Your next victim? Like Eleanor Vance's husband, or all the other women you charmed and dropped after you got what you wanted?" The color drained from his face. He stared at her, then at me, and in his eyes I saw the dawning, horrified realization that we knew. We knew everything, and more importantly, we had acted on it. "You're the ones who did this," he whispered, his voice a strangled croak. "That email? That was you two?" I didn't answer. I just gave him a slow, cold smile, the same kind of smile he probably gave his victims just before he struck. "My game is over, isn't it?" he said, a look of utter defeat on his face. He wasn't talking to me or to Chloe. He was talking to himself. He saw that the well had dried up. His reputation, the only real currency he ever had, was now worthless. "It is, Marcus," I said softly. "It's over. Now I suggest you leave and don't ever contact my sister or me again." He stood there for a moment, a man hollowed out, a ghost at a feast he was no longer invited to. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. He didn't look back. As Chloe and I closed the door, we didn't celebrate. There was no joy in seeing a man, even a man like Marcus, so completely broken. But there was a quiet, profound sense of justice, of peace. We had ended his dirty game not with shouting or public scandal, but with the quiet, undeniable power of the truth. We had protected ourselves, and we had protected the next young woman he might have targeted. I looked at my sister, my wonderful, strong sister, who had emerged from this ordeal not broken, but empowered. She had learned a hard lesson, yes, but she had also learned her own strength, and our bond, tested by fire, was now stronger than ever. We had faced the monster from my past together, and we had won.
Marcus is defeated, and the sisters have only grown closer and stronger. But what's next for Naomi and Chloe? How will this difficult experience affect their future and their views on trust and love? The final chapter will tell of their life after the dirty game.
In the quiet weeks that followed Marcus's final, pathetic retreat from my doorstep, a new kind of silence settled over my home. It wasn't the heavy, anxious silence of before, filled with unspoken fears and suspicions. It was a clean, peaceful quiet, the kind that comes after a long, damaging storm has finally passed, leaving the air washed and new. The dirty game was over. We had won. We never heard from Marcus again directly. Through the grapevine of old acquaintances, I heard whispers that he had left town, his reputation in the circles he cared about so much apparently in tatters. His web of borrowed credibility had been so thoroughly dismantled that he could no longer operate. There was no grand cinematic downfall, no public trial, just a quiet, ignominious fade into the obscurity he deserved. It was a far more fitting end for a man like him than any dramatic confrontation. We had simply made him irrelevant. And irrelevance, for a man who thrived on attention and admiration, was a prison cell of its own. The most profound change, however, was in Chloe.
The naive, starry-eyed girl who had been so easily flattered was gone. In her place was a woman who was quieter, more watchful, her eyes holding a new, hard-won wisdom. The experience had wounded her, yes. There was a period of deep embarrassment and self-recrimination she had to work through, angry at herself for being so blind. "How could I have been so stupid, Naomi?" she'd ask me, her voice laced with frustration. "You weren't stupid, honey," I'd tell her time and again. "You were young, and you have a good, trusting heart. He's a professional at exploiting that. The fault lies with the predator, not the prey." Slowly, she began to accept that. She started to see that her trust wasn't a flaw, but something to be guarded more carefully, to be given only to those who had truly earned it. She poured her energy into her future. With a new clarity of purpose, she decided against the flashy marketing jobs Marcus had dangled before her, and instead enrolled in a graduate program for social work, wanting, she said, to help other young people navigate difficult situations. She had seen the dark side of manipulation, and now she wanted to be a light for others. Watching her find that new passion, that new direction born from her own painful experience, filled my heart with a pride so fierce it almost hurt. The sister I had fought to protect was now becoming a protector herself. Our own relationship, which had been strained by his insidious presence, became the truest prize won from this battle. We talked, really talked. I shared more stories of my life with Marcus, the good and the bad, no longer shielding her from the complexities. And she, in turn, shared her own fears and hopes with me, not as a child to a mother figure, but as a woman to a woman. We were no longer just sisters separated by decades. We were allies, confidants, survivors who had faced down a common enemy and emerged stronger together. One sunny Saturday afternoon, about a year after Marcus had vanished from our lives, Chloe and I were sitting on my porch, just as we had been that evening when this whole nightmare began. She was telling me about a new young man she had met in her graduate program, a kind, genuine soul, and her eyes sparkled with a cautious, healthy optimism. She paused and looked at me, her expression serious. "You know, Naomi," she said, "I never properly thanked you." "For what, honey?" "For not saying I told you so, for trusting me to see the truth for myself, even when you were probably screaming inside, for fighting for me, even when I didn't know I needed to be fought for. You ended his game, but you did it in a way that saved my dignity too." Tears welled in my eyes. "Oh, Chloe," I said, taking her hand. "You're my sister, my family. There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect you." In that moment, sitting there holding her hand, I realized the full scope of our victory. Ending his dirty game wasn't just about stopping Marcus. It was about this quiet moment of love and understanding. It was about ensuring that Chloe could move into her future with wisdom and strength, her heart open to real love, not the counterfeit version Marcus had offered. It was about reclaiming our family. Just the two of us, from the shadow of my past. My ex-husband had tried to use the bond between sisters as his new playground. Instead, he had only managed to forge it into something stronger, something unbreakable. He was a ghost now, a faded memory of a lesson learned. And we were very much alive, sitting in the warm afternoon sun, looking towards a future that was clear, peaceful, and entirely our own.